Hello again everyone, and welcome back to episode 5. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, Pringleton was designed and construction was started early on in the COVID pandemic. Terrible times, of course, but they did give us the opportunity to have time to reacquaint ourselves and enjoy old, forgotten hobbies again. They also gave us access to these, the humble COVID test. So in this episode, we're going to look at how these have been reused and repurposed in the construction of Pringleton. Yes, we're going to take a look at the legacy of the COVID test on model railways. Sit back, pour yourself a drink and enjoy. Welcome once again to the Pringleton Model Railway. Okay, so we are straight in here with a little look at a collection of some of the COVID tests that I saved for some reason during the COVID pandemic. And whilst I didn't have the presence of mind to record some videos from earlier on in Pringleton's construction, for some reason I did save a bunch of these things. And these tests have come in very handy indeed for construction, the ultimate bit of reuse. So as a country, as a world, we obviously got through millions of these things, these lateral flow tests with their tests and the swabs and all the stuff that went with them. Now, we came across 3 main types during the pandemic. Let's have a look at them. So this is the classic COVID test, quite square, quite rectangular, very solid, quite long. We also came across this one, the Flowflex one, a bit more of a design to it, slightly more rounded edges and smaller. This one, this was an Orient gene test, which we got a few boxes of from time to time. 2 colour, quite rare by all accounts, and some people got quite excited about these. Now, they've all got uses, but the ones that we had most of and the ones that were used most were these classic types. These were all negative tests, by the way, so nothing, no residual viruses in here. Now, the classic type had multiple uses. Now, I found myself doing 3 main things with these things. They became useful for walls. First thing was to spray them with some grey primer, just to make a sort of concretey type brick wall, block wall effect, so we'll have a look at that in a moment. The second thing, in a bit more exotic, was this stuff picked up from, this was Audi, a stone effect spray, which was rather nice indeed because that made for some really nice stone effect walls. We'll have a look at some of those as well. The third thing to do was to use brick paper, always the free stuff from Wordsworth Model Railway, free downloads, print out and stick around the COVID test. And they made some really solid, regular walls to really beef up the railway considerably, and you could spend a lot of money on this sort of stuff. So I was really pleased to find 3 different ways of making these COVID tests into walls. So let us take a look at some of them in place. So over here behind Pringleton town itself, we see some COVID tests sprayed with grey primer on both sides of the double track railway there. Perfect for this sort of area. Doing this with purchased walls would have cost a lot of money, and the fact that it's imperfect and a bit wobbly and inconsistent in finish just adds to it. Now look, let's have a little look down here behind the bridge pub. Really nice there, COVID tests with some foliage, some lichens, some hedges and trees there. So that is a very, very satisfactory piece of classic walling with COVID tests. Elsewhere in the town, we've got some walls where the stone effect spray is used. Now, a little bit of paper was added to some of these. Obviously, I need to re-glue that. But the stone effect made a really nice finish on both sides of the road here. Again, I've got dozens of these made from nowhere at, you know, very little cost other than the spray paint, the primer, or in this case the stone effect spray. Look at that one outside the Indian restaurant there. How lovely is that? Again, here on the other side of the road, in the car park coming up to the station, really nice finish. The spray effect, I think it was £5 and I did loads of this stuff with it. And here are some first examples of use of the free brickwork paper from Wordsworth Model Railway as well. The dimensions of it were serendipitous. Look, so the brickwork on face, or whatever the term is there, was just the right dimension for the COVID tests. Depth, lovely, look at that. Some more COVID tests down here with brickwork paper. Again, the fact that it's all been a bit imperfect, a few bits eaten by ants, just adds to it really. And when you sling a few bits of static grass, lichen, hedges, foliage, clump foliage all around it, it really creates a very tasty finish indeed. And here we have a few more examples over in the Pringleton goods yard there. A few more COVID tests nestling down the back there, with some different brickwork paper from the Wordsworth Model Railway website on it as well. Now, that is not the only use I've put the COVID test to. In fact, the first example of the classic COVID test was here up in Mount Pringleton, where I took 4 of these together, stuck them with a bit of glue, a bit of grey primer, to create this sort of watchtower type thing. And you know, it's a bit grim to be so pleased with yourself about this sort of stuff, but you know, I think that is absolutely fantastic. A light in it, I think, is well on the agenda soon enough. Now, that is not all, of course, because anyone that's come across these lateral flow tests over the last few years will remember that they came with the sort of little tubes to store the fluid in and to do the test. And I even found a use for some of those recently. The top of that test there has tremendously been repurposed into this street lamp, or this yard lamp here. And if we find our way down, yes, these are they, a little pack of them. If we find our way down the yard itself, we will see there's quite a few of these lamps have been created and installed. Very satisfactory. Not turned on yet. The grand switch on for Pringleton will be taking place very shortly, so stay tuned for that. But here we have it, if you didn't spot it before, the ultimate COVID test reuse here. The lateral flow tests themselves making walls, and in the foreground the specimen sample tube converted into a yard lamp. Woohoo! And finally, of course, again, if you've had experience of these tests in any form at all, you'll remember that they came with the sampling swabs, and the classic test kit themselves came into ones which were really rather long indeed. So these, without doing anything else to them, are absolutely fantastic for getting inside loco wheels, mechanisms and so forth. A bit of isopropyl alcohol on them to clean them up is a fantastic job. The long ones, these ones, also ping off. Whoa, it's pinged over there. And actually, even these bits of plastic can, I think, have a role to play in terms of street lamps, pillars, something like that, simply because they're all going to be uniform length. Plastic can easily be repurposed. Not quite sure what that's going to be yet. I think street lamps, But I have got quite a few of these for various reasons, and I'm absolutely confident that they will find a use in Pringleton going forwards. So there we have it, the legacy of the COVID test on model railways, or indeed on Pringleton specifically. So hope you've enjoyed this video, this episode. If you have, please like, comment and subscribe, and look forward to seeing you next time. We're going to let the layout play us out with a close look at some of this scenic work created with COVID tests. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again soon.